And now a word from our sponsor. Tahari Leather Ode. It will make you smell like a man. It will make you smell like a leather-clad swashbuckling warrior from the forests of Dagoska. One who can bash in the skulls of many a flat-footed native thing. I gave away my copy of Before They Are Hanged to a friend of mine. This is the original cover. It's quite boring, this cover, really. So, Before They Are Hanged is the sequel to Joe Abercrombie's grimdark fantasy novel, The Blade Itself. The Blade Itself. And The Blade Itself established the characters and the world, and it had a very slow pace and frequent long descriptive monologues with a very dry sense of humor, a sense of fatalism, a sense of loss, and it was very descriptive and well visualized and well imagined, and there was a weightiness, meatiness to the world, so that when bursts of violence occurred, it had such a greater impact and a sort of devastating long-term effect to it that was very riveting and exciting, and also damn hilarious at times, especially because similar to a Quentin Tarantino film or something, everybody, you felt a sense of love and hatred for at the same time, and nothing really mattered, and yet seeing them in these positions of action and violence, you didn't have to take it too seriously, and at the same time you still cared enough about the characters and the world was interesting. But it was just, overall, the Blade itself was sort of a meta-analogy in the fact that the simplicity of everything made for a more visceral experience, and I'd say it was a meta-argument for less is more. Even perhaps unintentionally in the title, as it references an old saying, the blade itself incites to deeds of violence. And so, in the meta fashion, the blade itself would actually be some sort of like comparison to a pen and the writing, because the writing was so good that it came off as so much more powerful than so many other fantasies out there. And so if you analyze the plot itself, you'd realize it was a rather, standard dark fantasy world with archetypical characters, but the realization is the star of the story, the thing that makes it come to life. So so everything I've said about the blade itself has already been, is basically exactly the same thing in the second book, except everything has a multiplier times 3. It's 3 times the Before They Are Hanged is 3 times better than the blade itself, because now the adventure is really moving, kicking off. There are more action scenes. There's greater quests, greater responsibilities in the characters. You're actually seeing a sort of nostalgic, sweeter, typical fantasy plots with more hardened adults, more mature R-rated characters going on. And then so there's this juxtaposition of like this very wonderfully corny Dragon Quest, Dungeons and Dragons type campaign that's the most basic bitch campaign you've ever seen, but the realization continues at the same scale as the first story, and it maintains believability throughout, even though the greater mystery and the magic of the world is only mildly interesting. It's minus one thing. The land really does feel like it is entering a sense of doom, and you see that with Inquisitor Glocta's, campaign being sent to defend a city against the encroaching domination of the Gurkish Empire. And this sense of apocalyptic doom that the leadership is corrupt and has for a long time doesn't really know what's going on is like both intentionally wonderfully hilarious, but to a level of black comedy and darkness that you don't often see, that makes it extremely original. And so then the story is just peppered with so much dark humor that it really stands out, and it's really a great guilty pleasure. It's really a good time. But at the same time, it doesn't lose any of that sense of grandeur, that sense of epic, especially because the locations are so fun, so well realized, and so visceral. It's very much more alive, much more cinematic than most fantasy adventures out there. And the dialogue is much more educated, just better in every way. The descriptions, the writing itself, it's powerful stuff. There's a sense of a shameless honesty about the entire experience. But the main star of the story, as in the first one, not so much the characters, but the action. But the characters are nuanced and relatable enough because of their flaws. Ironically, are at the same time more sympathetic to us because they're more realistic for the less frequent redeemable qualities that they maintain. Shut up. I hope that this is the worst accent you've ever heard. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm really just improvising everything. Oh, holy shit. So, yes, Before They're Hanged is one of the most entertaining fantasy novels I've ever read. It does take a minute to read, but it has, better payoff because of the nuanced book format that it's in. And yet it feels very pulpy, very high adrenaline, very cinematic. Some really satisfying endings. And also, it has that perfect balance of being great without taking itself seriously. That's just fun. Like a Quentin Tarantino movie or something. It's like it maintains this genuine, honest feel of moral gray area that just doesn't give a shit because it knows it's a story and it knows that it can play around with different takes on morality. And so it doesn't. There's nothing cheesy about the presentation. There's nothing corny about the way things happen when a character there is this feeling of like enough sympathy for the characters while death seems to hover over a character at any time, and it can just take anyone away at any moment. And so it is actually very frightening. Combat doesn't always feel cool. In one sense, it's cool because it's a challenge, because it feels like a horror story. So the combat is just so well realized. Might be the best medieval combat I've ever read. So Before They're Hanged, 3 times as good as the blade itself. Lots of fun. Very. It's like a dark. Imagine someone took a more adult fantasy version of Marvel Blade comic books and combined it with a Quentin Tarantino movie and an 80s fantasy film and some amazing HBO drama and also a tragedy by William Shakespeare all smashed together. It's really a perfect story because it's just true to itself. And it's not going to be for everyone because has some particular qualities, but if you like dark fantasy and you like just classic, meat and potatoes of entertainment, like age-old, just pure, indulgent, slightly exploitative, fun, guilty pleasure, like pulp, adrenaline, action, some sex, like if you like that sort of thing, definitely recommend it. It's worth getting through Blade itself, which can feel tedious at times. Blade itself, the first book, is more slow-paced. Takes forever to get through. Long descriptions, establishing characters, lots of monologues and stuff that might slow majority of modern readers' patience level. Because Western audiences don't have any brain cells. They're not willing to invest in art and nuance to get to the good stuff. But it is worth it to get to the second book. So I'm about to start the third book, Last Argument of Kings. it's gonna take a minute. So yeah, Blade itself came out in 2006, and then the sequel, Before They Are Hanged, 2007. Last Argument of Kings, 2008, I think. And then that was the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Some of the most fun, manly, like, indulgent fantasy I've ever read. That still, its greatness is in all the little constructive details that construct the experience. Like the writing, like this guy knows how to write. Scenes, dialogue, totally immerse you, it's easy to escape into, and it's just fun. It's a good time, and it still has a sort of element of classiness, and like you're getting better at thinking and talking as you're enjoying some really good pulp at the same time. So for its perfect balance of just like artful construction and details and pure simplicity and honesty to the entertainment, it's delivering on the promises it makes. I give a perfect score, 10 out of 10. I love this book series. It's so fun. Humor's so good. It's challenging. It's scary at times. It's brutal. It makes you sick. Sometimes it's immersive, and it's like it's just up and down. It really truly is an adventure. So it's worth it to get through the tedium sometimes of the first book with the slower pace, and then when you get to Before They Are Hanged, it's so much more rewarding. There's a sense of universal doom in the land. There's a sense of there's just greater frequency of action, frequency of battles, more adrenaline, more pulp, more character establishment. There's more satisfying emotional character arcs, and the ending is like no other I've ever seen. That is really, really good and funny. And so anyway, highly recommend Before They're Hanged. We'll tell you my thoughts of Last Argument of Kings soon. We should forgive our enemies, but not before they are hanged. Fuck off.